So by this point in the book of Revelation, we should automatically be saying to ourselves, this is a really difficult book to understand. And this passage right here it's actually divided the church in many ways throughout history because there's so many different ways to interpret what's happening here. But at the very least, what we do have happening here is you have this mention of this 1,000-year reign of Christ, which points back probably to the kingdom rule that's mentioned in Isaiah, particularly from roughly Isaiah 50 to 60 in those general areas, actually even earlier than that and later than that, but generally in the middle of Isaiah, middle to end. All that said, there's a mention of this 1,000-year reign that's going to come. Many would consider this an interim kingdom, a 1,000-year reign on earth before the final judgment, before the end of the world and the beginning of the new earth. But what's happening in verse 5 is you have this resurrection of the martyrs from the period talked about from Revelation 1 to 19. And so they're resurrected, they're brought back to life, and it's a physical resurrection. They're actually brought back to tangible physical existence. And they come back to this earth, and based on how most of us would interpret this, I think, these martyrs then, in their new bodies, rule over the earth with Christ in what's called a millennial kingdom. And during this time, everything is as it should be, but it doesn't mean everybody is as they should be. God rules through Christ. But ultimately, at the end of this, there's going to be rebellion, which is why in verse 5 it says, "Blessed are those who experience this first resurrection, because they aren't susceptible to second death." In other words, most people are still dead, particularly those who died in their sins apart from salvation. And these righteous men and women who are martyrs rule with Christ for that 1,000 years. And then ultimately, as we get further along in the chapter, we realize that everybody else is raised from the dead, and we have what's called the second resurrection, which is also a physical resurrection. Everybody gets raised physically from the dead, good and bad. And on that day, God will judge the wicked and the righteous. And the wicked will go into the lake of fire with the devil and his horde. And the righteous will go on to live in the new earth in chapter 21 and 22 to experience salvation finally.